Sir, I now ask the public orator, Dr. Jennifer Obida Aline, to present Professor Louise Richardson, whom the Senate and the Council of the University have been pleased to recommend for the award of the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa.
Chancellor, we extend birthday greetings to Vice-Chancellor Professor Louise Mary Richardson. Happy birthday. A native of Ireland, Professor Richardson was born June 8, 1958, one of 7 children of Arthur and Julie Richardson. She attended St. Angela's Secondary School in Waterford. Professor Richardson received a BA in History with upper second-class honors in 1980 from Trinity College, Dublin, an MA in Political Science from the University of California, Los Angeles in 1981, and an MA and PhD in Government from Harvard University in 1984 and 1989, respectively. Chancellor, throughout her career, Professor Richardson epitomized academic excellence in teaching, research, and service. The great poet Yeats wrote, "Out of Ireland have become great hatred, little room, maimed us at the start. I carry from my mother's womb a fanatic heart." Professor Richardson's Irish heart beats an uncompromising academic focus on international security with an emphasis on terrorist movements. Professor Richardson is widely recognized as one of the world's foremost experts on terrorism and counterterrorism. Her publications include Democracy and Counterterrorism, Lessons from the Past, 2007, What Terrorists Want, Understanding the Enemy, Containing the Threat, 2006, The Roots of Terrorism, 2006, and When Allies Differ, 1996. She was awarded the Sumner Prize for work towards the prevention of war and the establishment of universal peace. Professor Richardson also serves on the boards of a number of nonprofit groups, including the Carnegie Corporation and the Booker Prize Foundation. Chancellor, at Harvard, Professor Richardson's commitment to teaching won her both the Leviton Prize, awarded by the undergraduate student body to the best teachers at the university, and the Abramson Award in recognition of her excellence and sensitivity in teaching undergraduates. Professor Richardson also has received teaching awards from the American Political Science Association and Pi Sigma Alpha for outstanding teaching in political science, and many awards from the Bach Center for Teaching Excellence. From 2001 to 2008, Professor Richardson served as Executive Dean of the Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study at Harvard, where she was instrumental in its transformation into an interdisciplinary center promoting scholarship across academic fields and the creative arts. In 2009, Professor Richardson received the Trinity College Dublin Alumni Award and was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. Also in 2009, Professor Richardson became the first woman appointed Principal and Vice-Chancellor of the University of St. Andrews. Under her leadership, St. Andrews has recorded its strongest performance to date in national and international league tables, widened access to record numbers of students from non-traditional university backgrounds, raised over £50 million from alumni and supporters worldwide, and invested in major improvements to its library, sports center, students' union, and faculties of science and arts. Chancellor, in 2011, Professor Richardson was appointed to the Scottish Government's Council of Economic Advisors. In 2012, ahead of the centenary in 2014 of the outbreak of World War I, she was appointed to the Scottish Commemorations Panel. In 2013, Harvard University awarded Professor Richardson the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences Centennial Medal, and in 2015, she became an honorary member of the Royal Irish Academy. Chancellor, on January 1st, 2016, Professor Louise Richardson became Vice-Chancellor of the University of Oxford. Thank you. Her appointment will make her Oxford's first female leader since the first leader was appointed nearly 800 years ago in 1230. "800 years, Chancellor, is beyond the human imagination, and we may all wish to pause and ponder the significance of this achievement. In its own right, for nearly 100 years, Oxford University has embraced and empowered the academic brilliance of Caribbean youth and has launched many of them on distinguished regional and global careers. From the legendary Sir Grantley Adams of Barbados, father of the West Indies Federation in the 1920s, and Dr. Eric Williams in the 1930s, the greatest of the early modern Caribbean historians, to our great Vice-Chancellors, Alistair McIntyre and Rex Nettleford, to today's young and vibrant cohort of scholars, parliamentarians, doctors, social scientists, and artists, many of whom are here today, Oxford University continues to have its presence felt in our Caribbean world. For decades, the University of the West Indies and Oxford University have participated as research partners on dozens of projects dedicated to the development of this region. It has been a proud tradition of research collaboration. The future of the Oxford-UE bond is therefore as unbreakable as the legacy held high everywhere in our community. Chancellor, Professor Richardson's arrival at Oxford has also coincided with post-colonial nations seeking a rethink on the legacies of colonial relations and academic curriculum, focusing in part upon the historical relations of the Academy to the Empire. In response, the new Vice-Chancellor did not pause and ponder. She openly called for a review of the relations between race and curriculum, history and education, and has set her university on a path of reflection consistent with an academic leader who seeks scholastic truth and a willingness to promote progress in human relations. Our own Vice-Chancellor, Sir Hilary, has been invited to play a part in this discourse at Oxford. Chancellor, we dare say that this bold leadership epitomizes Professor Richardson's future legacy as not only a writer of history and politics, but also a maker of history and a shaper of politics. Professor Richardson is therefore not only well surrounded by her alumni community today, but she can feel assured that they feel tremendous pride in the accomplishment of their alma mater and in the appointment and celebration of their Vice-Chancellor. Chancellor, I therefore take great pleasure in asking you now, by the authority vested in you by the Senate and Council of the University of the West Indies, to confer on Vice-Chancellor Professor Louise Mary Richardson the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa.
Professor Richardson, by the authority vested in me by the Senate and the Council of the University of the West Indies, I have pleasure in conferring on you the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa of this university. I sincerely congratulate you. I will now invite Professor Richardson to address the company.
Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor, principals, distinguished guests, thank you. It is an extraordinary privilege and a great honor to be recognized in this way by such a wonderful institution with which my two previous institutions, Oxford and St. Andrews, have such close links. The links we've heard about today go back for many years. We have had no less than 70 brilliant young graduates of this university attend Oxford as Rhodes Scholars. We've had many more Commonwealth scholars as well from the West Indies and from UWI study at Oxford, enriching our lives as they do. But I should just take a moment to say how deeply, deeply privileged and almost out of place I feel when I think of the ranks of those whom you've honored previously. I should say that I plan to speak for longer than it would take the distinguished honorary graduate Usain Bolt to sprint 100 meters. In fact, he'd be finished by now. Come to think of it, he'd have sprinted more than 200 meters by now. But I can also reassure you, because it is a warm day, that my remarks will not last as long as a stint at the crease by Brian Lara, another honorary graduate in whose footsteps I am both astonished and delighted to be treading. As an Irish woman who spent much of her academic career in the United States, who married an American before moving to Scotland, I confess that I don't really watch too much cricket, but I dare say that at Oxford. I was previously, as I said, principal of St. Andrews University, and last year welcomed Principal Sankat to Scotland. I also traveled from Scotland to see the Trinidad campus for myself. The Caribbean is so much calmer and warmer than the North Sea. As a head of an old Scottish university, the oldest Scottish university, I was assumed to be a champion for the Scottish whisky export trade, so it was wonderful to be toasted in good Caribbean rum. But I was especially pleased earlier this year to welcome Professor Sir Hilary Beckles to Oxford, where he gave a riveting and uncompromising speech on the question of reparations. I'm also glad to learn that many students here live in a residence called Irving Hall. You will know that one of my predecessors at St. Andrews was Professor Sir James Irving. He chaired the Irving Commission, which established the University of the West Indies in 1948. And due to this, there have been long-standing ties between the University of St. Andrews and UWI, including, I'm told, the infamous red gowns. So it was in recognition of these historic links that I invited Sir Hilary's predecessor, Sir Nigel Harris, to St. Andrews in 2013 to participate in the celebrations of our 600th anniversary. He lectured on the future of universities and was awarded an honorary degree in the same ceremony as then former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. It was really in conversation with Sir Nigel that I learned just how strong and how deep are the links between UWI and both St. Andrews and indeed Oxford. So as I looked at the long list of distinguished honorary graduates from the University of the West Indies, I began to get a little nervous. They included some of my great heroes, not least the Reverend Bishop Desmond Tutu, but also people like Oscar Peterson, His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, Kofi Annan, General Colin Powell, Oliver Tambo, V.S. Naipaul, and Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. Incidentally, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, came to Oxford in 1846 with her husband, King George VI, to open the new Bodleian Library. Just last month, her great-grandson, Prince William, the Duke of Cambridge, performed the very same duty at the now renamed Western Library, which we have refurbished for the 21st century. As I arrived here last evening, I flew into Kingston's Norman Manley International Airport. Now, Norman Manley, as you know better than I, was declared a national hero of Jamaica, a brilliant scholar, soldier, and athlete. He studied law at Jesus College, Oxford. In her history of renowned students at Oxford, Pamela Roberts chronicles Manley's personal insistence at interrupting his studies to serve in the First World War. He enlisted as a private in the Royal Field Artillery, refusing to be made an officer, and fought with the rank and file for 3 years on the Western Front, including the Battle of Ypres and the Battle of the Somme. He resumed his studies at Oxford in 1919. Had I not flown into Kingston, but into Bridgetown, Barbados, my plane would have landed at Grantley Adams International Airport. Again, Sir Grantley Adams won a scholarship to Oxford, this time the Barbados Scholarship in 1918. Adams studied law and classics at what was then St. Catherine's Society, now St. Catherine's College. And even I know enough about cricket to understand how good he must have been, appearing in the records for scoring 4 sixes in just 1 over against the unfortunate men of Hertford College. Adams became president of the Debating Society and president of his junior common room, as well as secretary of the university's Justinian Law Society. When I traveled to Trinidad and Tobago last year, I arrived at the A.N. Robinson International Airport. Ray Robinson was Prime Minister and then President of Trinidad and Tobago, obtained his degree in philosophy, politics, and economics, which is the degree favoured by aspiring British politicians, from St. John's College in Oxford, before returning to Trinidad, where he practiced as a barrister of law. As a political scientist, I associate him with the proposal that led eventually to the founding of the International Criminal Court. One of Robinson's predecessors, the first Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Eric Eustace Williams, regarded as father of the nation, is also an alumnus of St. Catherine's. Williams was awarded top marks in his year, not just at St. Catherine's, but across the entire university. He secured a first-class degree in history, where he went on to obtain his doctorate. I better pause because you have so many airports down here, but it all demonstrates that the Oxford connection with the West Indies is very wide and very deep. It extends even to the motto, Oriens ex Occident lux, or light rising from the west. The motto, I'm told, was first suggested by the principals of Queen's Royal College, Trinidad, Dr. R.M. Homer, but it was co-proposed by Maurice Platnauer, a former principal of Brasenose College, Oxford. Brasenose is the old college of yet another head of government, but not this time from the West Indies, rather Britain's current Prime Minister, David Cameron. Now, Mr. Cameron, as you will have noted, is currently very busy. He's campaigning very hard indeed for Britain to remain part of the European Union, with a referendum taking place in the United Kingdom on June 23rd. Earlier this year, Oxford University took the unusual step of taking a position on this referendum. We pointed out that a potential vote for Britain to leave would have serious ramifications for a significant percentage of Oxford staff who are EU citizens, not to mention Oxford's Vice-Chancellor, but also for our collaborative research culture involving multinational teams across several countries, and for our research funding. Last year alone, in competitive research grants, Oxford was awarded £67 million in research funding from the European Research Councils. For Oxford and other EU institutions, the EU referendum is a recent addition to a significant list of global challenges we face. Challenges of globalization, of technology, and of cost. Looking beyond the EU debate, and there are many in the UK, who are completely exhausted by now, and we still have 2 weeks to go. But looking beyond this debate, there are global developments that are altering the landscape for everyone. Oxford, the University of West Indies, universities everywhere. Any university is only as good as the academics and the students it can attract. It is my job and Sir Hilary's job to create an environment in which those academics and students can do their best work. The competition to attract talent today is more intense than ever because we are competing globally. Oxford's extraordinary history and heritage and its continuing academic reputation helps it function as a magnet for some of the brightest minds of the planet, including so many bright young students from the West Indies. But no university can ever take this for granted. World rankings and global league tables demonstrate that we are operating in a global marketplace. Today, nearly 50% of Oxford's academics and research staff are citizens of foreign countries. 63% of our graduate students, almost 18% of our undergraduates, are international students. Globally, over 5 million students are studying outside their home countries, a figure that has more than doubled in a decade. So academics are ever more mobile. We used to worry about a brain drain. We still worry about a brain drain of our smartest students, but we also now have to contend with a brain train as students and academics travel from country to country in search of opportunity and resources. But the underlying reason for universities remains as strong today as when the ancient universities were founded. John Stuart Mill was elected rector of St. Andrews University in 1865. And in his speech to the students, he said, "A university exists for the purpose of laying open to each succeeding generation the accumulated treasures of the thoughts of mankind." That is as true today as it was when he said it, even though the climate and the number of people and the percentage of people benefiting from a university education has grown exponentially. Now, Oxford is very proud to have been around since the 12th century, but there is nothing inevitable about the survival of universities, and longevity in itself is no virtue. Many of the universities that existed both in Europe and in Asia when Oxford began are unknown today. Those that have flourished have done so by staying firm in their commitment to core values while adapting to the changing world around them. As the famous Huxley-Wilberforce debate at Oxford in 1860 made clear, Darwin's insight was not that it is the strongest, but rather it is the most adaptable that survive. Now, Sir Hilary Beckles and I have many things in common: that we lead two wonderful institutions, that we have dedicated our lives to advancement of higher education, but we also have in common that we shared some time in Trinity College, Dublin, together at the same time. One of the graduates, perhaps the most famous graduate of Trinity College, was Edmund Burke. Now, he's largely been written out of Irish history because the British claimed him, but in any event, Burke famously wrote in his reflections on the revolution in France that a society without the means of change is without the means of its own conservation. And universities have to change, and we have to adapt. Certainly, Oxford University has changed over the years. It has grown in size, in the range of subjects taught, and the makeup of students and staff. But I often wonder what an earlier graduate would think if he were transported forward through time from the 12th or the 14th or the 16th or 18th century to today. He would be surprised by the comfort of our lives, by the quality of the food, the luxury of electricity and cars. He'd be surprised by the presence of women and the absence of clerics. But the basic model would be familiar to him: scholars coming to study together and students traveling to learn from them. But advances in technology are transforming all our lives, and in myriad ways. Students now arrive at university fully networked with their friends and families around the world. They are accustomed to instant access to information on the internet, to watching films on laptops, and to reading books on tablets, and to doing all three simultaneously while eating lunch and chatting to their mother on Skype. Interestingly, one of the trends in technological developments is towards personalization in medicine, in our phones, in our cars, in our newspapers, and our social networks. A personalized education is, of course, at the heart of what has been provided at Oxford University. Far from educating students for particular jobs, we at Oxford and here at UWI, we must educate our students with the flexibility and the creativity to be prepared for jobs we cannot even imagine today. Only a few years ago, universities were being declared defunct, dead at the hands of massive open online courses. The initial wave of euphoria that greeted the arrival of MOOCs, in which world-famous teachers could teach their courses for free to anyone and everyone interested, has been tempered by the reality that the completion rate for these courses rarely hits 5%, that those taking the courses tend to be well-educated males in first-world countries, rather than impoverished women and men in the developing world, and that successful business plans, the means by which participation is assessed and costs covered, have not been developed. The early experience of MOOCs has demonstrated what has long been known, that there is no substitute for personal interaction between student and teacher. But there is no going back. Technology will transform how we operate, and UWI, through its Open University, has a long tradition of using technology successfully to expand the reach of education. The pace of change is accelerating at breathtaking speed, and we need to be able to keep up. Today, most of us carry more computing power in our cell phones than existed on the Apollo space mission. In 2010, Eric Smith of Google pointed out that every 2 days, we create as much information as we did from the dawn of civilization to 2003. New technologies provide extraordinary opportunities through the powers of digitization to make our collections available across the globe to anyone with access to the internet. Technology provides challenges to our libraries, but we can preserve the library as the intellectual hub of university life by bringing new technologies inside, by adapting to the ways our students learn, by educating them to be wise consumers in a world of information overload, teaching them the difference between information and knowledge, and instilling in them a desire for wisdom. This brings us to the cost of higher education, which is becoming a problem in all our societies. It's the benefits of education, it seems to me, both financial and intangible, accrue both to the individual and to the society in which they live and work. It seems reasonable to me, therefore, that the cost should be shared both by the individual and society at large, and we all have to figure out ways to share these costs fairly. There are many factors driving up the cost of education. New technologies, global competition are two, and others investing to ensure that those with the talent to be admitted have the resources to attend. These are all necessary costs, willingly incurred. All our governments are suffering since the financial crisis, and we have to become cognizant of our responsibilities to the polity that funds us. We have to become conscious of the impact of the research we conduct at our universities. We have to be prepared generously to share the expertise that we hold in our universities, and I would say the University of the West Indies has set a model on both the impact of its research and on sharing its expertise in the interests of public policy. But universities also have to become more creative in raising revenue, partly through private philanthropy, partly through taking advantage of the intellectual capital that we produce, and also by new business ventures. We are under enormous pressure from our governments to help financially. and we have a responsibility to do so. But it is important that we remember that the time horizons of universities are longer than the time horizons of most governments. If universities continue to do what we do best, we will inevitably help our countries manage their future. If we can provide leaders for tomorrow who have been educated to think critically, to act ethically, and always to question, these are the people who will prevent the next financial crisis, who will help us to grapple with the fundamental questions prompted by the accelerating pace of technological change, as we confront profound ethical choices about the prolongation and even replication of life. People who will force us to confront the costs we are imposing on the next generation by careless use of the Earth's resources, who will articulate our obligations to the vulnerable, the poor, the victims of war, oppression, and disease wherever they live. If we continue to focus on research and teaching, we will produce both those destined to make transformative scientific discoveries, as well as those who can assess the implications of those discoveries for the rest of society. These contributions are not in the short term, they are in the long term. They may not be readily translatable to a spreadsheet, but they are nevertheless invaluable, and we, leaders of universities, must defend them. Growing up in rural Ireland as one of 7 children, in a family in which my brothers didn't finish secondary school, I never imagined in my wildest dreams that I could ever attend Oxford University, never mind lead it. I never imagined in my wildest dreams that I would be standing where I am today, being honored by the foremost university in the Caribbean. It is education that has got me from where I began to where I am today. And I'm deeply committed to the power of education to transform all our lives and to the obligation of those of us in a position to help ensure that other students without the means to attend university, wherever they are, can have that opportunity. As I was thinking about coming here and doing a little research on the university, I came across the official song of UWI by Noel Dexter, and I thought how these words apply to every university in which I've ever had the privilege to spend time. And in particular, these words, to follow after knowledge, the truth to seek and find, to teach us love and justice, to liberate the mind. Today we see you rising, a light out of the west, that guides the feet of all who seek the noblest and the best. That applies to every university. So whether it is in a rainy, cold island off the northwest coast of Europe, or a sunny, warm Caribbean island, whether it is a 68-year-old university or an 800 to 900-year-old university, whether we are male or female, black or white, young or old, rich or poor, we are united by a belief in the power of education to transform lives. We are united by a belief that universities, yes indeed, are, as Mill said, the guardians of our culture, but we are more than that. We are the engines of our economies. We are the drivers of social mobility. We are the foundations of our democracy, and we are the generators of new ideas. So thank you all for doing me this honor today. I can only say that I am very proud to become an honorary Pelican. Thank you.